Hello everyone, Prime here, and today we're going to be doing something that we haven't done in a while, and we definitely haven't done for Smite, but it's been asked for, so may as well try it out. Fenrir, or Cerberus, Hades' very personal hellhound, guardian of the underworld, and three-headed beast, or Fenrir. The beast of Ragnarok, the consumer of the sky, fella of Odin, and giant wolf. Today we're going to be comparing these two and deciding who would actually win in a fight to the death. Fenris's birth terrified Loki, and as the wolf grew, Loki eventually fled from his daughter and wife to another part of the island that they were staying on. After the birth of Loki's third son, in between which Loki dealt with his fears of his first son and stayed with his family for a time, Loki screamed so loudly that Odin was alerted to this island and banished two of the children, taking only Fenrir with him to Asgard. They took him to Asgard because they feared Fenrir the most and thought that they could somehow control him or manipulate his development in such a way that may prevent the events of Ragnarok. Here the wolf struck fear into the hearts of the Aesir gods, and Tyr was the only one that cared for the giant pup. During this time, Fenrir grew to become a much larger wolf than the gods had anticipated, and they all decided to take care of him. In fact, Fenrir possessed the ability to grow infinitely. With his growth came increased strength to match his size, meaning ever-growing power. Three dwarfs were instructed to craft various chains or bindings for Fenrir, which Fenrir allowed to be placed on himself under the guise that they were tests of strength. By the time of the third test, the gods were getting anxious and really needed the wolf to be bound because they were afraid that the wolf may realize that he had no reason to follow the gods or respect the gods anymore, that he would be so powerful that he could overthrow them in Asgard. By the time of the third test, Fenrir, being a more intelligent wolf than most other wolves would be, having the ability to talk and having sentience and most of the things that a regular human would in that area, noticed that something was a bit off about this third test, and to assure that there were no tricks, had Tyr place one of his hands into his jaws. When it became very obvious that in fact this was a trick, Fenrir bit off Tyr's hand and was bound. But as I said, Fenrir's strength was ever growing along with his size, and eventually his strength grew to such a degree that he broke the chains on his own and ushered in Ragnarok. At Ragnarok, Fenrir roamed the world with his lower jaw touching the earth and his upper jaw raised into the sky, consuming everything in his path, including the sun. He would consume Odin only to be defeated by one of his sons. Cerberus, through the union of Echidna and Typhonus, came into being. He is the famed hellhound of Hades, who guards the gates to the underworld. Cerberus was said to be able to terrify many gods, demigods, and of course mortals, purely through his appearance. He had a mane of snakes, and his tail was also a serpent. If that wasn't enough, his bite was said to be poisonous, and should this poison touch the ground, the plant wolfbane would grow in that spot. Wolfsbane's poison, or the effects of being affected by its poison, could cause someone to vomit uncontrollably, feel nauseous, notice that they have weakened limbs or paralysis, and may even cause death, among a bunch of other symptoms. He was a large beast, but was defeated by Hercules with a tackling maneuver that landed the beast on his head, rendering him unconscious and leaving him to be taken away by the hero. Another test of strength. Tyr assures Fenrir that nothing is amiss and that his opponent may even slay him. Amused by this, Fenrir widened his jaws and roared laughter from his seemingly endless mouth. The beasts then gazed at each other, far into their wide eyes. Fenrir wavered for just a moment as Cerberus leaped into action, slashing and tearing at Fenris, but the size difference was almost painfully obvious, Fenrir flicking back the meager mongrel.
This is your so-called test of strength.
Disappointed, Loki's son sat down, unsatisfied and very hungry. Cerberus savagely barked at Fenrir, who was at this point uninterested. The triple dog's fangs now dripped with poison, and his mane of snakes thrust forward like a heavily loaded artillery gun. The beast pounced again, but this time his head met with before. Cerberus bent his back forward, pointing his serpent tail towards Fenris. The serpent crunched down on the wolf's nose. Fenris screamed in agony as the serpent's venom surged through his nose, using the confusion to his advantage. Cerberus dug his claws into the wolf and bit him in all 3 of his heads. Now unable to move, Fenris fell forward, bleeding, enraged on the ground. He shot a death glare at Cerberus, and then began to ignore the poison, rising before Hades' power. He opened his mouth and consumed the beast, feeling searing pains as the mane of snakes from inside of Fenrir gnashed and bit at his insides. But proudly, Fenrir stood, the victor of this fight. Fenrir was really not a good opponent for Cerberus, admittedly. I just went off of this fight based off of the fact that they were both gods and possible deities in Smite. Fenrir's ability to grow was said to be limitless, and with his growth came increased strength. The only thing from Cerberus' arsenal that I think could possibly counter this was the fact that Wolfsbane's poison had the ability to paralyze its victims, weaken its victims, and even cause death of the victims. But this would all depend on how powerful Fenrir would have been, at what point of Fenrir's growth cycle he would have reached. And if Fenrir has the ability Ragnarok inside of Smite, he's probably far too powerful to be affected by the poisons of Cerberus. So, there you go. At least, not for very long. And so, I declare Fenrir, the Unchained, the victor this fight. I hope that you did enjoy that one, guys. If you did, it would mean a lot if you could leave a like. And, of course, tell me what you thought about this one. I haven't made a Showdown video in a very long time, so I would very much appreciate feedbacks. If you'd like me to perhaps see who would win out of 2 of your chosen gods, go ahead and leave requests in the comment section below. But, until the next video, have a very, very good day. I have been Prime, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.